keyboard pounding, shoots to face. I'm gonna rent out the last blockbuster for a full week.
Who's renting out this last blockbuster?
The murderer.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. Now stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's another edition of Sincerely Unqualified. I'm Kevin. As always, we have Winnie. Today, we're going to be doing Old School from 2003. So, if you're talking about the movies that we've been reviewing or breaking down, I guess kind of on the older end.
It's at the turn of the millennium. It's coming around the bend from the 90s. It's a great intro to the 2000s, I'd say. I think if you're starting your comedy movie kind of repertoire, if you're starting to get into all these movies and everything like that, it's a good jumping off point to see where kind of the early 2000s from here go on. I'd say from the 2000s to the 2010 range, this is a good starting point. Yeah, exactly.
This is the start of the golden age.
Start of the golden age of these movies. I'd say that it definitely makes a list somewhere. I'd say an honorable mention. I'd definitely say this movie, for being made in 2003, being the start of the golden age, it holds up. It's a great movie to just rewatch. If you haven't seen it, I'd say watch it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, hey, before we get into it though, what were you got going on the last week? How's the week been? People want to know.
The people are interested. It's been a little hectic, just getting everything together. I just had the best day of my life today, though. The New York Football Giants took down the Seattle Seahawks at home in Seattle, 17-12.
What else? We understand. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Comes out Tuesday. It's old news.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Sorry
What's
about
that?
your Eagles, but we'll go from there. Do you want to change your hat? I mean, it's a little late for that now, but
it's the hat that was at the top of my pile, and I thought it worked with this shirt. So, just went for it. Also, Jalen Hurts for the future.
It hurts.
Jalen Hurts threw it to Rager.
This loss hurts. But
all right.
Otherwise, what have you been going on? What have you been doing out there?
I have been watching a lot of Great British Bake Off. I've been watching Sugar Rush, the Christmas edition or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I don't bake. My fiance and I don't bake, but I can't get enough of these damn baking shows. They are delightful.
I gotta be honest.
Delightful.
I mean, I powered through some of that too. You can't get enough of them.
The reason I thought about that is just because we had our TV on, but we weren't watching anything. So, Netflix throws up the titles and then the descriptions or whatever. So before, it was literally only comedies. It was stand up and then maybe Big Mouth coming. And now I looked and there were just 4 consecutive baking shows that they showed me. And I was like, that's new. And there's no way that Netflix was just pushing that out there like that. No. That's how much baking I am watching. So I got to assume I could bake a cake at this point. We should mention that this week, let's mark it in movie history. Crazy news. Theaters are dying. Theaters are done. There's no way that they can step over this. HBO Max is now releasing all of, is it Warner Brothers pictures?
So it's all of Warner Brothers, all of those under the umbrella is that conglomerate. But it's basically anything, TNT, True TV, all of that stuff. I mean, not that they would be releasing movies, but that studio under the HBO name, under everything under Warner, is just going to be released now.
Warner Media.
Alongside theaters, exactly. Yeah. Alongside all the theaters,
going
to be just released streaming. And this is crazy. I mean...
And that's the thing. They are still going to be in theaters. So if you really like theaters, that's still going to be an option. And I really don't think theaters are going to die completely. I think that there is always going to be some semblance. I think that probably what's going to do better is the ones that have started serving food and all that kind of stuff, drinks. But it's a step. It's definitely a step. And I don't want to, just because I bet a lot of people that listen to this like going to the theaters. Everyone likes going to the theaters, which is why I think it's going to keep going.
I think theaters are not going anywhere just because there's people who love them so much. And I think I'm one of them. I think, you and I saw Endgame in a theater. I mean, there's nothing like that kind of experience of seeing
Absolutely
it with
not.
other people that you don't know, who don't know the outcome, and it's almost like a group experience where it's being stripped away. I mean, you could have a couple people over, you could watch and stream a movie, but it's really not the same thing. It's like watching a football game on your TV with a couple people. Incredible. Love that. But then going to the game, you have like the whole experience of just being there. You're with everybody. Your emotions are so much higher. You're so much more into it. I mean, I feel like that's not going away for that specific reason. Just the emotional kind of, and how it is in a theater, the sound.
No, absolutely. No arguments here. Definitely just crazy news for next year. Let's get into Old School, the 2003 comedy, available for rent. I don't believe it's on any streaming that I saw. Actually, I stand corrected because I was just on YouTube TV earlier and I was able to get it through that. But I paid that $3.99 dishing out. I'm supporting the people that are helping me out with having a podcast. So we have Luke Wilson, Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, Jeremy Piven, Ellen Pompeo, Juliette Lewis, Leah Remini, who, by the way, last episode I took a shot at Scientology kind of as a complete joke. And I said, I think I said the wife from King of Queens. It's Leah Remini. It was just funnier to say that way. A whole lot of other people. I think, Winnie, I can stand corrected, it kind of can be looked at as this kind of frat bro fraternity movie. I think that we can start out with flick takes here, our insights. I don't know how fair that is. I will say I can see it. Like, I won't really argue too hard. I won't push back too hard on that.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at it, we were talking about 2003. We're launching into the golden age of comedy. When you look at prototypical frat movies, obviously you have Animal House. I think that you can also look at Revenge of the Nerds. There was obviously very stereotypical, hyperbolized jocks, frat guys, all that kind of thing. But I think that there's even like a vibe to that. That movie alone, it kind of leans somewhere where we're not at nowadays. Obviously, it's old. I think it's more of a blend, and I think that it's not. I'm not saying sexist. I can't pull a better word. Like, I don't think that it's this crude, just frat boy comedy that I think it's easy to look at it that way. I think that there are definitely a few elements to it, but honestly, I think that it did well of making it actually a very good movie, a very good plot, aside from the fraternity thing. Like, I think that was pretty auxiliary to the actual point in the plot of the movie.
Yeah, and that's, I think, highlighted by them only doing one party scene, where I know you mentioned that, like, the movies today, so taking Neighbors, which is a Seth Rogen movie, everything like that, there's a couple of them. It's basically hinged around the party and the craziness and everything like that. This movie is more centered around, I think, the reality somewhat behind it. And I mean, obviously it's out of left field because all these people are above the age of college. So it's literally people who are not in college. They've made a fake fraternity that becomes real. They're all above 30 years old. There's only one party scene in it. So I think it's looking at it from a completely different perspective versus it being this insanely frat-based movie where it's coming at you with, like, I mean, I know there were some real experiences written into it, but it's not coming at you every 5 seconds with, like, if you don't know, you don't know. Or if you're super into partying, then you have to understand to laugh at this. I think it's a really well understood thing that you don't have to have done that to be able to laugh at this. Right. And the cast helps so much with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. It's an all-star cast, so it's gonna be done well when it is done. So like, they have the pledge. They have some pledging stuff, you know, but it's not actual pledging stuff. I also don't think it's trying to prove a point. It's just trying to be silly. Like when they have the piece of string tied to the cinder block, and like there's that hilarious line. Why is the other end of this rope tied securely to my penis? And then they throw it off. You get some 2003 comedy with the big guy going down. His hits the sewer. They make it as a point to kind of be silly, and I think it's another way to have their characters interact with the story and just kind of go through it, because Will Ferrell is this guy who ends up loving to haze people. Not haze people, he yells at them and that kind of stuff, and it's kind of goofy, you know. It's Will Ferrell.
It's just, I think it's just making fun of the whole thing, honestly.
Right.
It's really
absolutely.
it's highlighting the absurdity of the whole thing. It's like, when you see nowadays, when you see the movies Neighbors and everything, and you see these semi-dramatic scenes of these kids doing these crazy things and the young people kind of destroying stuff, everything like that, that's completely different from looking at it like Will Ferrell, who's a 35-year-old man who's in a like unstable marriage, yelling at somebody at a children's birthday party to get him another beer and stuff like that. It's just making fun of the absolute absurdity of the whole thing and taking it to the next level. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of not anti-fraternity, but also just, hey, it's self-aware. This is so stupid.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say, is because I think it is easy to look at it as be like, well, it is about that. But you kind of have Animal House, which I think it works in that odd way of being very pro fraternity at the same time being anti fraternity. It depends on how you want to watch the movie. Whereas I think Neighbors is kind of, you know, I think not. I don't want to poke fun at Neighbors. I think Neighbors is a good movie. So I just think generally when fraternities are discussed in movies nowadays at all, whether it's right or wrong, probably more right with all the stories we hear, it's looked at negatively. There's nothing that you can't make this movie nowadays and just say like that can't be just a part of the story. You know what I mean?
No.
It can't just be like, oh, they happen to be doing this ridiculous thing of making a fraternity even though they're 30. Like there has to be a stance that's made. And I think that it serves the movie well by not making a stance and just having it be a plot device, essentially.
Exactly. The one thing about the plot, too, that kind of confused me, I don't understand why there's so much that happens in the post-credit scenes. Every character finds they end their arc in the post-credit scenes. And you don't, like, if say you were in a theater in 2003 and you're leaving, and then you see Blue singing the song, you're like, all right, I'm going to just leave. And you're left on this note of where do they end up? Like, okay, this is some throwaway, like he's performing. That's funny. I'm going to go get my car and not get caught in this traffic and not back into somebody leaving. But then after that, every single character basically finds like the ending that you thought they would.
I think that, well, actually, that's exactly right. Now, I was going to push back a little bit. I think you might have talked yourself into it without realizing. I think that the reason they did it is because it's fun to see. Like, if you wanted to see a little more, here it is at the end. But you didn't need to, because you knew exactly what was going to happen. So, credits roll, and then, like, I think it is funny seeing Will Ferrell there at the end. Like, he runs into Mitch's ex at the grocery store or whatever, and he is a DJ at the college, and then you see Dean Pritchard dying by the ex-boyfriend also dying. I think it's fun, but no, you're right. The one thing that I loved the post-credit scene specifically for is that Vince Vaughn's son was wearing his soccer jersey the whole time. And we're like, okay, I guess he plays soccer, of course.
Yeah.
And then we finally see him playing soccer. I just thought I was like, I guess I get it. Like, he's wearing soccer, but why did the costume designer like make sure that he was in a soccer jersey every single time he was on the screen?
I didn't even notice that he was in it every single time he was in it.
Pretty sure
that
he's
in a soccer.
I didn't look into that.
I think I think you're right. That orange, like he's always in that orange, no matter what. And you're like, okay, does he just really like this shirt? And I guess when you're a 7-year-old and you have a shirt you like, you're gonna rep it non-stop. Non-stop. And also, with the whole plot and everything, the characters. So in this is Luke Wilson, right? And there's always the Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson duo. You see it in Wedding Crashers. You've seen it in a couple movies. I feel like there's something special that happens when the Wilson brothers, whether it's Owen or Luke, and Vince Vaughn get together, that it's almost like a yin and yang, because the Wilson brothers have such a specific way of speaking where it's kind of drawn out and it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm not going to do it more because that was
please no. I missed it. I think your mic
I
went
cut out.
Do it again?
Yeah. Oh no, that's a shame. You'll just have to listen to it in the recording. And then there's Vince Vaughn, who's just the quick hitter. Just there's such a yin and yang of their line delivery that it works so well, especially when they're paired up, kind of going back and forth, because I mean, Luke Wilson is kind of the slower, more methodical, like gets to the point a little slower, but still hits. Yeah. And then Vince Vaughn can roll out 7 jokes in 3 seconds. And you're like, whoa, what just happened? And they play off each other so well. Whether it's Owen or Luke, do you have a preference for one of them? Are you going to throw your hat in the ring for one of the Wilson brothers?
I'm not sure, because I look at them as very different. Like, it's weird for Luke because what I really know him from is this movie and Royal Tenenbaums, and then like I think Owen kind of has different movies all over. So off the top of my head, I can't say I prefer one over the other. I think that they're definitely different. But I do know what you're saying with, and I think it's very easy to point out, all 3 of them are fantastic actors. The reason that Vince Vaughn and the Wilson brothers could go off each other. But I do like that insight. I do like the fact that, because they kind of both are, they both do have some interesting, slow, unique delivery. Same as Vince Vaughn on the other side. So I do think that they just go off each other very well. I think that that's why this movie does have a lot of good lines. Obviously, it's just written very well. This movie, I think at first, seemed like more of a casual watch, and just we kind of are in this story with everyone, and it slowly kind of moves along, but it's entertaining because there are just these subtle lines mixed in, like quick hitters, mostly by Vince Vaughn. And then you were saying, like, the end credits have all the characterization. But I do think that at the end, I think that it kind of hits a tipping point where it turns from a really funny, casual watch to a really entertaining movie. And I do think that that happens kind of around where the whole competition starts for them to keep their charter. I think that what's funny with all these lines and these characters is that Will Ferrell, of all people, it's weird because you would assume in the beginning of this movie that it starts out as the main character, or who we really need to get the most out of, as Luke Wilson. Because he gets dumped, and then he has this new house, and it's this whole thing going on. And then slowly it starts to look like it's Will Ferrell's deal. Yeah,
it's
like, I think at first you're thrown into it, and Luke Wilson is just thrown through the ringer right away. Like,
immediately.
I don't know of a first scene where it's just more of a roller coaster. You just start like figuring out more and more, and you're like, his wife or his girlfriend's cheating on him. That sucks. And then you realize, oh no, it's just porn, and he's gonna try to roll with it. But then this couple comes out of the closet, and then you realize that they're like, she's doing this gangbang, and then someone shows up someone shows up at the door and says, oh, like, they're here for the gangbang, which, by the way, this won't come in exclusives. We'll say it now. The person that shows up at the door is Todd Phillips, the director. which is
a great way for him
hilarious.
to get in. He got in one line in the movie, and it's "I'm here for the gangbang."
He snuck himself in there.
Yeah, he wanted. Okay, I know he wanted to say that line, and whether he wrote it in for himself or was just like, "I need to be this guy," just threw himself right in there for the one-liner. Just "I'm here for the gangbang," and he's got the perfect look for it too.
Oh, he does. Oh, he looked like a gangbang guy for sure.
He looked like a big gangbang guy. Like rolled right up with the confidence of like, you know why I'm here, but I'm going to make it known.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome. I agree, though. It did kind of become Will Ferrell's movie slowly. And I don't know if that was kind of a post like filming choice or if it was more like they kind of had the idea to pivot more towards that character because one character was getting more settled and you slowly see that Will Ferrell's life, like you think Luke Wilson's life is getting derailed, but it was just his girlfriend that broke up with him. So that's going to happen.
Right.
Will Ferrell had just gotten married. Like one of the first scenes is him literally at his wedding. And then
Vince Vaughn telling him to stop, which is, by the way, for those who don't know, I'm getting married in the short future. If you do that to me, if you're up there, like, oh, by the way, you probably shouldn't do this. Like, hey, that's not the time or place. Like,
I may just do it to reference this. I may just say, honestly, turn you around and be like,
I'll be like, yeah, of course.
If somebody else is up there doing it, I'm going to be like, either they listen to this or they're just a dick. One or the other. Like, hey, man, maybe you shouldn't do this. Like, oh, damn, you're a fan? It's like, what are you talking about?
What?
Like, you just shouldn't do this. Will Ferrell, another thing about him is like his character goes so far down the derail road, and you find out early that his wife, Perry Reeves, who also plays, I mean, we know that actors play different parts, but it's cool to see Jeremy Piven and her in the same movie before Entourage. So Will Ferrell's character, his wife tells him like, don't bring back Frank the Tank. Like, you know what happens. And
Frank the Tank.
Hearing that from me, just immediately, and seeing him go into that just reminded me of another movie with him, The Other Guys, where he has the persona of Gator. So we're both from The Other Guys. We're both of it. I mean, every character he plays seems to have this past where it's like just so exaggerated. It's like, I don't know. You don't find out too much about Frank the Tank. You kind of see it in action. But for the Gator development that we talked about in our Other Guys episode, it was just kind of like him becoming a pimp slowly but surely and kind of devolving back into that when he gets out of his relationship. And it's the same kind of thing here where he just kind of devolves back into that. I'm sure that had a role in the Gator character. He's like, this is gonna, you know,
maybe like I honestly think like it was funny because I think it was a slower reveal with Gator. Yeah. And then you see it this way. I think that this is just him falling off the wagon. Like, I think that they don't just, like, there's nothing that they say, but it's shown so they don't have to say it, that he is an alcoholic. Frank the Tank is this funny, like, oh, you know, he gets drunk sometimes and has a good time. Obviously, he is an alcoholic. It's just this whole thing. That's why I think his storyline, his character is just all of this hyperbolized stuff that, well, being an alcoholic and that kind of stuff, that's not hyperbolized at all. But he gets married, and I think like almost the next scene or something, he's working on his Trans Am and it's blaring. he's doing all this stuff. He's obviously supposed to be like so hyperbolized, being masculine, and then the wife coming to try to tell me I shouldn't go to this party and drink. Like
the wife with iced tea coming out like, hey, it's just so crazy.
I get it, you know, but like I do think that there is something within Frank the Tank that's kind of relatable for a lot of people. Like a lot of people like kicking back and letting loose, but this is just
he does the first beer bong and then just immediately goes, oh, it's so good when it touches your lips, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go.
If you say things like that, it's not some fun thing.
Another thing with Will Ferrell's character too is in the after credits we see Vince Vaughn being this like overbearing youth soccer coach.
Yeah, which
and
the bill.
2 years later, Will Ferrell did Kicking and Screaming, which is an overbearing youth soccer coach.
Yeah.
There's a little link somewhere. There might have been like, hey, oh my God, we're solving it. There might have been a little. Will Ferrell saw that scene and was like, that's a movie. Let's call up fucking Mike Ditka and get this rolling.
Someone bring in Mike Ditka stat and Beyond Sung.
Yeah. Beyond Sung he's number one character in that movie by far. I would love to see what he's doing nowadays. But I thought that was a cool little tidbit that's like seeing Vince Vaughn play that character. I know why Will Ferrell was in Kicking and Screaming, because not that Vince Vaughn isn't great, but it was meant for Will Ferrell.
Yeah,
it was meant for him.
I'm going to throw this out here as just a possibility, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But I think it's possible that Will Ferrell didn't watch the one end credit scene that Vince Vaughn did and say, I'm going to make a movie about this.
I think that's
it's
clear
possible.
I think that's clear speculation on your end. I don't think that's fair to say.
I think that you're diving in. We're trying to make some links. I just, just throw it out there. Just saying it's a possibility.
Look, I think that's a conspiracy theory. Yes, I am.
We'll devolve. Let's break
No, you know what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing.
Right now, when he's looking up, if that's how it happened, let's just assume it's not. We can move on. Actually, did you before you try to prove any of this? Did you have anything you wanted to say before we get into our facts section in exclusives?
I think I'm going to circle back to everything that we're doing, but
let's touch base.
I think we're good.
And circle back.
Yeah, we'll touch base.
I'll move on.
Start us off.
The team here.
Start us off.
All right. So starting out with an exclusives, mine is going to be around the whole Mitchapalooza scene that we mentioned. So there is one scene that there was a party, and it was kind of this whole thing. Mitch recently single. They were trying to get him back into the wild. Another, hey, we get it. But it's a super fun scene. It does super well. And this scene, they actually had 300 extras in it. So everyone was just partying the whole time because they, a shoot was going on. They had to get all this footage. There was a lot happening. So Vince Vaughn actually had to go up on that stage and just entertain people for a solid hour because there were just 300 extras sitting there. And I'm pretty sure that they said they were drinking. And what they were actually waiting on was Snoop Dogg, because he was in the trailer just obviously smoking weed, playing video games, as Snoop Dogg enjoys doing. And something else about Snoop Dogg is that he needed to be bribed into doing this cameo, this awesome cameo, by the way. And he actually, the bribe was to be Huggy Bear in Todd Phillips' upcoming movie Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah, so basically, literally, he had to do this cameo in order to get, watching Starsky and Hutch, I think it's an incredibly underrated movie.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Hang on. One of the top 3 GIFs, whatever you want to call it, that I use is do it. Do it. Jack and Coke. Do it.
Now, do it. That's a common line in my household. In my household, we say do it all the time.
In this household, we say do it.
We say do it. And it's got to be like that. If you don't say do it, we don't know what you're talking about. Do it. But do it. Will Ferrell literally got drunk because it took so long, which is, unbelievable. Yeah. And, so another thing, a kind of connection to the Snoop Dogg thing with him staying in his trailer too. Bert Kreischer in his recent show, or he had a podcast recently where he's filming a show where Snoop Dogg's involved also. And he said that a very similar thing where Snoop would go in his trailer, just hang out and just smoke. And it was a really cool thing to get invited to go hang out there. If you got the nod to go and hang out with Snoop, it's an honor. And one thing on set that I saw is that Vince Vaughn and some of his friends got invited to go hang out in the Snoop trailer one night. And Luke Wilson was kind of upset because he didn't get the invite. Yeah. For me personally, that would be so upsetting. I would be.
Yeah. dude, it's Snoop. Like,
I would be so upset.
You have to go hang out with him, play video games. I guess, didn't they say Vince Vaughn was just, he didn't realize, and then he saw Luke Wilson in his trailer and was just like, well, you didn't get the invite? Like, that sucks. By the way,
like, hey, you coming to this thing in Snoop's trailer? It's like, what thing in Snoop's trailer? That's got to be a shot to the heart.
Huge shot. We'll shout the show out. We're big Bert Kreischer fans, so we'll help him out in any which way we can, because his influence isn't as big as ours. But it's it's a TBS dogs. Show. It's called The Go Big Show. Loves dogs.
Plug for Bert Kreischer. Love you, Bert.
Yeah, sponsor the podcast show.
A podcaster sponsoring a podcast. That would be so good. So another thing about Vince Vaughn, kind of coming into the Vince Vaughn realm, I think he's an incredible comedic actor. And we've seen that in his career throughout, whether it's in Dodgeball. I mean, he was in so many classics.
Yeah.
But for this movie, the studio didn't want Vince Vaughn to play Bernard, even though the part was kind of written for him. Like, it was written with him in mind. So he had earlier appeared, in the late 90s in remakes of The Swingers and Psycho. But the studio didn't think of him as a comedic actor. They thought of him as a dramatic actor for small films, which now looking back, I mean, with hindsight's 2020, but kind of putting Vince Vaughn in that small film dramatic actor box, it's crazy. I mean,
and that's what's so funny is I think of Swingers as like, I don't think of it as some indie drama, but I guess I could see it. It was like stylized. He played a very unique, peculiar kind of character. But you look at this guy and it's funny. Studios are right about a lot of stuff. That's obvious. But to be wrong like that, thank God they got proven wrong, because Vince Vaughn's absolutely, he graces movies. I mean, whatever movie he's in, it's generally fantastic. So thank goodness that they didn't do that. But speaking of studio moves that did not go through, and thank God that they didn't, there was supposed to be a sequel to it, this movie. And they were supposed to be going to spring break with college kids. Let's assume that it was Mexico or a Spanish-speaking country, because it was supposed to be called Old School Dose, which another thing is just, I mean, come on.
But put a little effort into the title, a little bit.
But Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell read the script and they were like, no, this is more of the same. Like, we're not doing this. And I think that would have taken away from this movie so much more. I think it's probably very possible that it just would have gotten buried and we would have now 10 years later been like, oh wow, you remember that? Well, I guess more than 10 years, but you remember that was a movie, Old School Dose? Like, thank God no one really talks about that. But I think it also could have taken away from this movie. I think a lot of the time that people make specifically comedy movies, I know that everyone's like, oh, the sequel is never as good, but it's so easy to ruin an original good comedy with a ridiculous, not that great sequel.
Okay, so my main thing, because I've talked about this a decent amount, I feel like it comes up where, the sequel, I mean, in any realm of film, it's like, the sequel's not as good, blah, blah, blah. I think comedically, the one thing that stands out where the sequel or sequels took away so dramatically from the first one is The Hangover. If they left The Hangover as a standalone film and didn't go for I feel like after the fact, they were like, oh, this made so much money. It was so good. It's a trilogy. Did you not know? It's a trilogy.
Yeah.
And we all came back like, excuse me? How the fuck are you going to do this 3 times? So they did it 2 more times. If they left that movie as a standalone, it would be on TV all the time. People would be watching it all the time. But now that we got inundated with 2 more of them, it's like, all right, we get it. I mean, they got drunk, did something crazy. Wow, that's incredible.
And I think that really off the top of my head, the one that I can think of that worked the best was probably 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street. Those movies worked out very well. Like, that sequel was very good. I personally think that, well, actually, you know what? How about we'll do them at some point. we'll hit the rewatches on them, but
Yeah.
I do think that the first one was probably a lot better. I think both those movies are fantastic, though. Speaking of The Hangover, though, so someone, and again, we we know that actors play different roles, and
We're
speaking
aware.
of our podcast, like our comedian favorites, Brian Callen, he is a stand-up comedian, has a podcast. He is someone that friends with Todd Phillips, so he's in a few of the movies. So he had a cameo in this movie. Well, I would say a small part, not so much a cameo. So it was this movie, The Hangover, and The Hangover 2, and for some reason he does an accent. Like
I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, I mean I guess he passes for. I guess you look at him and you're like, oh, maybe he could have an accent, but the fact that he does this accent and he's not a small time person. Like, I think a lot of people know him. He's on an ABC show, The Goldbergs, all that kind of stuff. And then also, by the way, he's in Joker, and he just has a one-line thing or something. But he, for some reason, just loves having an accent in some of these movies. But maybe it was just a coincidence, or maybe Todd Phillips really likes when Callen does accents. I don't know,
because I feel like it didn't take away from his character. Like,
no, not at all. It's just funny.
I'm gonna say it's just funnier. I mean, it's funnier. He comes over and he's just like, "All right, you eat for free." In an accent, it makes it so much better. Because if he was just being Brian Callen, he'd be like any other guy in the movie who walks up. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's a legend." Blah blah blah. But the little
he would
hint
be like
of the
Rob
accent,
Corddry,
with zero lines.
Yeah,
Rob Corddry is in the credits with zero lines. And this is before he embraced it and went full bald on the top. Did you see he had a little spot right there? Like a little spot of hair on the kind of in the middle. Yeah. I was like, dude, at this point, just commit. And he did. And I think it did wonders for his career. I would correlate to his success. I think they cast him in Ballers, but they were like, you got to shave the middle. And he's like, I'll do it. And now he's in commercials too. So
maybe actually, speaking of awful sequels, maybe Hot Tub Time Machine 2 made him go completely bald.
I would say that. I think just the stress from making a second one of those is enough to drive you to shave your head.
Yeah.
I think he did a full, we've seen historically that stress leads to shaving your head. And I think that might have been an instance. So for my next fact, it's basically, the earmuff stuff that Vince Vaughn does with his kids.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. So all of the earmuff stuff was improvised on set the day of, where it's basically them just going, all right, earmuffs. You can say whatever you want. Fuck shit. And then just goes into it. All of that wasn't in the script, the whole earmuffs thing. So Vince Vaughn just made it up. Unreal.
Do you know how many parents probably actually used earmuffs in 2003 to 2005?
I had it used on me. You know how many times I've heard earmuffs when I was a kid, and then it's like, all right, and you know what you do? You cup your hands, you hear everything. It doesn't matter. Yeah, earmuffs don't really work. Gonna be honest.
Yeah, that's another one of these things here. Yeah, that works like in old school. A lot of these movies, old school included for sure, some of these lines just enter the zeitgeist and they just don't leave. I think earmuffs is another one of those things for sure.
One of those also is "You're My Boy, Blue." Like, a few years ago, I forget how long ago, but I'd never even seen the movie, but I knew "You're My Boy, Blue," and I didn't even know where it came from. And I was saying it had no idea. Honestly, thought it was from a really old movie. No idea where it came from. And I'm just saying it.
Dude, I just choked on my own spit. I bet a lot of people are like that, because there's so many times that it's referenced. Like, "You're My Boy, Blue." It's just these movies, these 2003 era movies, have a way of just coming back in our jargon. But
they just, I'm gonna be honest, no idea. Now I know. It's great, and I'm still gonna continue to say it. Also, something that was improvised was the drunk speech that Mitch gives at the wedding. It wasn't in the script, but Vince Vaughn was just like, hey, we should have Luke do a drunk speech, during this and kind of go from it. And I think some of the best lines come from that, where he just goes on about love and how it's not real. And Vince Vaughn jumps in and he goes, what he meant to say. I think that was definitely a great scene in the movie that was all just not in the script.
I do think the speech itself was great. And I think, funny. I think that
it was
served
great.
a good purpose. Yeah. No, but I think it makes Vince Vaughn's speech so much better. I think that's a cool part in the movie where it's like, oh, he saves him. He's this smooth guy. He knows what he's doing. If it was just, I think that it would be very overlooked if it was just Vince Vaughn doing it.
Yeah, I think, well, dude, he built Speaker City from the ground up. He's obviously a smooth guy. He's got six stores worth $3.5 million. He doesn't need to do this.
Speaking of that, I'm pretty sure I said the name of his store during the 40-Year-Old Virgin episode when I couldn't think of Smart Tech. I think I said Studio City. It's so funny how that just proves how popular and how much of a big deal these stores were. That just
it just went into the other unit. Yeah. Oh, they like a Radio Shack was the place to be. Radio Shack was a go-to for anything. And now it's like a relic. You can't find a Radio Shack.
Well, that would probably be because they went out of business.
I mean, again, to my point, you can't find a Radio Shack. Find me one. Do it.
Oh, okay. Here's another Inexclusive exclusive. I bet a lot of people know this. And I did not do any research. I remember seeing that the last Best Buy can be rented out on Airbnb. So
oh my gosh, I saw that.
Yeah. And also, did
no,
you
not
look into
Best Buy. It's not Best Buy. It's
sorry.
Blockbuster. It's Blockbuster.
I was thinking the other two Bs. But yeah, I think that it can be rented out on Airbnb. But I also did not look into it.
Have you seen the inside of it? It looks awesome. But the one thing about it that's weird, and I'm going to tell you right now why I wouldn't rent it, is because the whole front is a glass pane like a storefront. So you can see the entire inside. So it's all illuminated and you're basically renting a storefront property to brush your teeth and basically be a zoo animal for the night. So people can walk by and see you in your natural habitat.
Nah,
it's a novelty
thing. You're not renting out that Airbnb because you like the location and it looks cozy. You're renting it out because it's the last one.
Look, let's be real here. Do you think on your bucket list you're going to be like, guess what I did? And they're like, what? And you're like, I stayed in the last Blockbuster. That's an Airbnb. And it's like,
the fact that it's an Airbnb, though, proves that there are people that are like that. There are people that are probably so into Blockbuster that are like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. I'm bored.
Who's so into Blockbuster? People that order movies on Netflix still that get the DVDs, they're still into Blockbuster?
Are you trying to tell me that you think that it was just like someone was like, oh, I own this storefront. I'm just going to make it an Airbnb because, prime location, walking distance.
No, I'm not saying that.
Boho chic apartment.
Look,
it's a novelty thing. People are going to go
obviously
stay
it's
in
a
the
novelty,
Blockbuster.
But it's creepy is what I'm saying. It's a creepy novelty. It's weird. It's weird looking.
You think
if I got a free stay there?
Down if someone got murdered inside of it, because I feel like that could be a decent indie horror film. If someone's staying, let's write a script.
Dude, that's another novelty. Okay, I'm done.
Someone rents out, so it just starts. There's dramatic music playing, keyboard pounding, shoots to face. I'm gonna rent out the last Blockbuster for a full week.
Who's renting out this last Blockbuster?
The murderer. But you don't know it yet. But, you have a feeling because he's starting to speak like that.
No, you know what he's up to. But is he inviting people to this Airbnb with him so that it can kind of be a like, is he putting it on Facebook Live or is he posting it like, hey, come here and look at this murder live and they can see it from the outside of the street?
Well, okay, now we're going. Now we're going into the don't mess with cats thing or whatever it was called.
They'll
We're
find
not,
you.
We're not
They'll
live
find
stream
you.
murder. You got way too dark with this. I'm just trying to write a script. All right. Do you?
That's the script. That's the winner. That would win at Con.
All right. We're entering Canonus, and it's gonna be about someone renting out the last blockbuster. And so actually, you know what? More so I was thinking in that is that someone, like, not that it would be haunted, but the person that was staying there would get murdered. Because I feel like that's creepy to be staying.
Yeah.
It feels kind of apocalyptic, you know?
Or it's kind of like a Parasite thing where there's still some guy sorting all of the VCR tapes in the basement the whole time, and he comes out and he's like, "Oh my God, there's people here," and you're like, "Yeah,
Some
what have you
guy's
been
still
doing?"
making minimum wage on the payroll of Blockbuster Incorporated.
He's sorting. He's in the basement rewinding all of the tapes still, just for everybody who's picking them up.
He's calling someone about their rental of Cape Fear.
This has been overdue for, how long's it been? 26 years?
Excuse me, sir. It's 2020, and the movie came out in 1984.
Be Kind, Rewind. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Characters. Let's do characters instead
we'll develop it. We don't want to give too much away, just so we keep our equity in this movie. So we'll move on. We'll move on to character for character. You start us out here.
All right. So for me, I've talked about him quite a bit today. Big fan. I'd say Vince Vaughn is my favorite character in this, just for his ongoing. Okay, so the first thing for me that is great is the ongoing thing that he needs to make it, like, whatever he's doing, he needs to make it about his business that he runs, or how he runs the business, or what he's doing in that business. Even when he's giving the presentation, when they walk in and he's giving the presentation, he brought that camera with him, set it up, did the whole video setup just so people know that they can get that kind of stuff at his stores. And the video setup was just a zoomed in version of his face when he's 3 feet away from everybody in the room.
Yeah, I love that he was so close to everyone, but he wanted to make sure it was on the big screen. I also love when he was at the birthday party and he was in the clown costume, just dishing out his business card. Like, I got you, baby.
Just smoking a cigarette, dishing out the business card. And also after the party, after Mitchapalooza, he wakes up hungover and he's sitting on the couch. And my favorite thing that he did in the movie is he's watching his own commercial, like lip syncing to all of the things that he said. And then he kind of goes, "You know what sounds better than our speakers?" And before him in the commercial says it, he goes, "Prices." And then he's in the commercial going, "Prices."
Very
so
self-obsessed, very about his money and his career and all that.
And the one girl calls him mature, and he's doing whippets with her, and he just goes, "Mature, yeah."
That was a weird scene.
Yeah, that was a very interesting kind of dynamic. He's
married
there.
though, so yeah. Mine has to be. I think it has to be Will Ferrell. Like, for the lines alone, I think he goes through this brutal arc and obviously is redeemed at the end. He's not a bad guy, mean guy. Honestly, he's a good guy. He's up against it, but some of the lines that he produces throughout this whole movie are just incredible. Like, I'll mention a few later, I think, or at least one later. He's a likable guy, you know. He's just like a poor Will Ferrell. I mean, granted, he's a raging alcoholic, but
I mean, no matter what he does in the movie, I feel like you still, whether it's the absurd kind of hazing and making them do things and yelling at them constantly, but I feel like that also helps for us watching now and looking back and knowing all of Will Ferrell's work, how he goes from 0 to 100 really quick. This might have been one of the first instances of him doing that, of going like from calm. And then, I mean, you'll mention it in the scene, but when he gets burned and just goes crazy. But I mean, there's nobody who could replace him in this. I think this is more of his kind of coming into his own comedically. He was on Saturday Night Live, did everything, was on TV, and then just comes into the movie scene so hot with this stuff. I mean, it was great. It was
no doubt about it. But yeah, you mentioned it with the scene, so we'll move on to scene for scene. And the reason that I feel like I couldn't say much about him, the gymnastics scene. So
Yeah.
I think that the whole entire it's way cheating because it's a huge part of the movie to be like the whole competition or whatever. So you have the Russ Cargill or whatever the debate when he just like blacks out and goes into it.
James Carville,
by the way, James Carville, yeah. Artie Lang is in the van when they're doing the quiz part. Just wanted to throw that in there. That does not look like Artie Lang nowadays.
He was at the first conference. He was in the first scene. I saw him pop out. I go, young Artie, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's when he was on Stern too. That's like old Artie. That's pre everything.
Yeah. So my favorite scene out of that though has to be the gymnastics scene. It's just so funny. So you have Will Ferrell doing the what is that even called? The ribbon? The ribbon?
No, I don't know what pirouetting is, but I want to say it's
Pirouette's
pirouetting.
like
I don't know.
It's like a ballerina.
I think it's when you stand on your toes when you're a ballerina.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll move on here.
Yeah.
He's doing the ribbon thing, and then you have Vince Vaughn doing what's apparently the most intensely difficult move in gymnastics, the Iron Cross when he's smoking a cigarette. And then you have the big guy from Me, Myself, and Irene. He does like a quadruple front flip, just absolutely kills it. You think that he's gonna go land on the little guy there, but ends up absolutely killing it. Just it's hilarious.
That's Gerard Mixon.
Is his name. Sorry, Gerard Mixon.
Weensy. That's him. Our guy Weensy. I love the special effects they threw in too, where it was just the that was so good. I mean, perfect flip.
Him alone with the throwing the cinder block through that's very 2003.
I feel like that was very Police Academy-esque humor where it's in your face and like out, like very Airplane, very like kind of paying homage to that stuff where it's in your face, you know exactly what they're doing and you're still gonna I mean, for me, my favorite scene was when our guy Sean William Scott from American Pie, he was from Role Models, he's in everything,
a whole lot of stuff.
When he shows up at the kid's birthday party, the kid's birthday party in itself is hilarious, where they have the pledges running around in these costumes. Vince Vaughn is a clown and he's smoking a cigarette, as we mentioned, handing out business cards. Then we have Will Ferrell, who's in a bathrobe, I think, running or like just yelling at people, yelling all the pledges to bring him stuff and everything like that.
Yeah.
Then there's a petting zoo. He walks up to Sean William Scott, he finds a trank gun in the truck bed where the horse is, which is, I feel like not an ideal place to leave your trank gun, but he finds it in there. He just starts playing with it. He's like, "Oh yeah, it'll go through a rhino's skin, everything like that." Shoots himself in the jugular. He's just.
That's what I thought. Shut up.
Yeah, shoots himself in the jugular, and Sean William Scott the whole time is like, "Yeah, you got a dart in your neck." He goes, "You're so crazy. I love you, but you're so crazy." Proceeds to fall in the pool. The best thing I think that happened is when Will Ferrell gets pulled out, thinks that his ex-wife is making out with him, and you see the cutaway to just him flailing his tongue while Sean William Scott's trying to give him CPR.
Tonguing him down.
Absolutely. And I don't know how many takes that took, but that's a lot to throw in there. Just, I don't know if that was one take and he just kind of ran with it, or if that was in the movie and they're like, "Look, we're going to have to do this 6 times. Mentally prepare yourself for Will's tongue just flailing around. Just get ready for it." Yeah.
Speaking of one take, by the way, something that didn't make the cut for Inexclusive exclusives, but interesting to note, is that Luke Wilson apparently was so good with his takes that he would constantly get just one take would be good. So they called him One Take Wilson on set. But
that's awesome.
I just heard it. We're just chock full of knowledge. We're a fountain of knowledge on this podcast. Also, something about that scene that I thought was really weird watching, because that was my favorite scene, honestly. And just like that interaction between Sean William Scott and then Will Ferrell falling into the pool. I was watching it yesterday or whenever I hit my rewatch, and when Will Ferrell goes into the pool and, just falling, it looked a lot like the scene in Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, when he does Rocket Man, the song Rocket Man, like the titular Rocket Man.
Just kind of falling, yeah.
Yeah, like it's when Elton John tries to kill himself and he goes down. I just thought that was interesting, and I don't think that they looked at this.
You don't think
like, oh, that's really good. Maybe it just looks like any other underwater shot of someone falling in a pool. But
they're like, Elton, how do you want to do this? They're like, Rami, do you have any suggestions? He's like, I was watching this movie, I was watching this movie, Old School.
Wait,
he's got the teeth.
A different movie.
He's got the teeth. What? Rami Malek plays him, doesn't he? Oh no, he doesn't. I thought Rami was in that movie. No, that's
he's certainly not.
No, he's not. He's not in that movie. That was Freddie Mercury.
Sure was.
That's who he played. He played Freddie
Elton
Mercury.
John and Freddie Mercury are in fact different people.
They are different people. They do not play the same person in different. They're not same person playing different roles. So we're all there. We can go from there. Yeah, we're good on that. Now. I'm still catching up on that concept. So bear with me.
Yeah.
But
we'll move on to line for line here. So I think that I'll go first here, and it's when Andy Dick is teaching the blowjob class, which is a hilarious scene in itself.
Yeah.
But and I think that this is a bit of writing that I like a lot. And it's the style of writing I like the most. So it's like, I like when just randomly movies just throw in really specific references that they know not many people will get, and then directly point it out. Like, that's obviously, like, it's a thinker. You're not going to get this. But Andy Dick just going, come on, ladies, you're not Romulus feeding from the teat of the mother wolf. Like, it's just like, because it's this ancient Greek mythology. I think it's Roman mythology, maybe. But, like, there are these two children that were raised by wolves. And he just throws this really specific reference in there. It's like, you might not get that if you don't know your mythology. Like, it's just keeps going. There's this song playing in the background. It's, like, very rhythmic, and it just keeps going.
Literally just
I thought
throwing in a mythology reference during a blowjob class.
Yeah, like a super more specific thing.
He's like, and then 5 seconds later, he's like, you don't want it to come early. And then he just proceeds to, that was a great little toss in. You can't get better than that. For me, it's my number one is when they're kidnapping everybody. And they jump out of the van to get, I forget who. I think it might have been Rob Corddry. It might have been somebody else.
It was Corddry, yeah.
Yeah, and he's getting groceries with his wife, loading them up in the car. They jump out. They steal him in the car, and his wife's like shocked. And
she has no clue what to do.
Will Ferrell just yells, you tell anyone about this, I'll fucking kill you. And then he goes, I'm kidding. We'll have him back by tonight. Okay, sweetie? And then just takes some of their groceries and bails.
Takes like the Pringles or something. Like,
yeah.
That whole scene was great when they were chasing him and Master of Puppets was playing in the background. And then you tell anyone about this, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. We'll have him back by tonight, sweetie. Yeah. That's so good.
No, another screaming line that I like a lot was during my favorite scene when it was before the gymnastics part. It was during the school spirit part where they're doing this synchronized dance, and at the end, Will Ferrell's in the cat costume or this like whole thing, and he goes on a trampoline, jumps, burns himself on fire through a hoop of fire because he can't get it. And then they're like having a debrief in the locker room, and he's just like so red, wearing just tighty whities. He's like, we can't have anyone freaking out there. We gotta keep our composure. He's just nailing the lockers. Just like the only one that's freaking out. It's just very burnt and red.
Picks up the chair and just throws it at the lockers and goes, we gotta keep our composure.
Yeah.
That was so good. I mean, that plays into the whole scene, the gymnastics scene that you were talking about. It's the aftermath of him just being burnt alive in a cat suit. There's nothing better that you could have just thrown in there. For me, I'm going to toss up for my last line.
Okay.
Because there's so many good ones in this movie, but one of them, I have two. I'm going to go with two Will Ferrell ones for my top two. Because him streaking and running down the street naked, and his wife pulls up next to him, and she goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And he goes, "We're streaking. We're going up to the quads. We're the gymnasium." And he's just running through the streets alone. And she goes, "Who's we?" And he goes, "Oh."
He just
realizes
doesn't
that
realize.
there's nobody.
Yeah, pushback here. I told you this before, but I do think that the best line in that, when it's Will Ferrell drunkenly talking about streaking, is "You could bring your green hat."
Yeah, that's what when he's just running out, interrupts the whole concert. I think tied with that too is when he hops in the car and just goes, "Honey, you think KFC's still open?" Like that one just hits too. I think I gotta throw in a Vince Vaughn line just as a like an honorable mention, which is
give us one.
When Luke Wilson's saying, like, Vince Vaughn goes initially when he first gets the house, Vince Vaughn's like, "How'd you land this place?" And Luke Wilson goes, "I don't know. It's pretty easy, actually. A professor lived here for like 30 years. Then he died." And Vince Vaughn just goes, "That's awesome," and high fives him.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that was just a pretty good throw.
You don't want to be in the dead person's house, even though if it's a great rate. I can't do that. That's not for me.
No, that's not for me either. You got to disclose this information before I'm putting down a mortgage payment, even a rental. Yeah. I mean, that's a little bit much for me. He was good with it. He knew, and he was like, "Fine, yeah, it's great price, great price." I mean, if you're cool with it, go ahead. It's like it's the novelty. It's the novelty we were talking about.
We'll work on that script.
The novelty factor.
Yeah, maybe this time next year we'll have it in production.
Working title: Novelty.
I feel like we could think of something much better revolving around Blockbuster.
You notice how I said working title and not established title? It's like it's like old school Dose. Like it could have been a working title. You never know.
What should we name this sequel of this movie? I don't know. Fucking old school Dose.
Somebody was like, "This is the second one, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Old school Dose." So I said, "Okay, fuck it. Yeah, we're running with it. Yeah, that's easy."
So we're going to name ours Blockbuster Murder.
Yeah. That sounds like a section that was in the store.
Ooh, yeah, a YA section. We'll maybe we should just write a novel instead. We'll make a YA novel about the last Blockbuster.
All right, let's do it. The last Mohican and the last Blockbuster.
Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, great movie, worth the watch. If you're going to watch it on YouTube, I think it's free. As Kev mentioned, if you are new to the pod, share it. We love new listeners. We love feedback. We love everything. I mean, we have all social media platforms. If you want to follow us, Instagram, everything except Facebook, basically. I mean, we'll work on that, but, probably not. Everything on Facebook. Give us a follow. I don't think we need one. No. But give us a follow. Share it if you liked it. If you didn't, tell us why. We'd love to hear it. Tell us what we can do better, how we can improve. Absolutely. And, that's all I got for you. Hope you liked it. Hope you watch Old School, too, if you haven't.
Yeah. No, great movie. Worth the watch. So until then, I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie.
We'll see you at the next episode.
Dose.